Good evening, everyone. We'll start the special council meeting tonight by acknowledging the continuing connection of Aboriginal people to country, culture and community, including the traditional custodians of this land, the Wadandi and Kaniang people of the Noongar Nation, paying respect to elders past and present. We'll declare the meeting open at 5:01 p.m. and welcome everyone in the public gallery. This meeting is being live streamed and digitally recorded in accordance with Council Policy EMCP2. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed without the permission of the chairperson. Although every endeavour is being made to record only those who are actively participating in the meeting, loud comments or noises in the background may be picked up on the recording. Attending, we have myself, Vivian McCarthy, Councillor, Councillor Anita Lindeman, Councillor Anne Mitchell, Councillor Grant Patrick, Councillor Deanna Shand and Councillor Lisa Glover. The staff present is CEO Nicholas O'Connor, Acting Director Finance and Corporate Lauren Clifford, Administration Officer Corporate Services Samantha Farquhar, Ross Marshall, Director of Operations, Michelle Dennis, Manager Development Services, and Stephanie Karafillis, Acting Manager Financial Services. And as we say, welcome to everyone in the public gallery. We have apologies from Councillor Alexis Davey and I believe Councillor Gubler as well. Was a decline, Samantha? Is that an apology? Yep, okay.
As an apology, yep.
Thank you. There are no approved leaves of absence, but item 2.3, councillors, are there any applications for leave of absence? Thank you. We have no announcements, so moving on to item 4, declarations of interest. Division 6, Subdivision 1 of the Local Government Act 1995 states that care is to be taken by all councillors to ensure that a financial or impartiality interest is declared and that they refrain from voting on any matter which is considered to come within the ambit of the Act. Item 5, public question time.
I need to declare impartiality as I'm a member of the tennis club for item... Here's one I prepared earlier. Thank you. Item 8.1.5, which is the approval of the BC Mitchell Park licensing.
Thank you for the prompt, Councillor Glover. It does help to ask the question. Any other declarations of interest? Moving on to item 5, public question time. We have no responses to previous questions that were taken on notice and can move into 5.2, public question time. In accordance with clause 7.3 of the Local Government Act Administration Regulations, public questions must relate to the stated purpose of the special council meeting, and we'll now invite questions from the gallery. Are there any questions? When we do the deputation, okay. A question?
Question.
Would you like to come over to the... Welcome, Mr. Hardisty.
As you know, my compadre Passan and ourselves were here at the meeting when the Shire decided to knock the application back for Blissfest to be held at our property, the Very Delightful. We noticed on the evidence that was submitted to Blissfest that there were 3 admissions that the Blissfest had 3 previous events successfully at the Very Delightful.
Mr. Hardisty, this is a question time, so we just need a question from you.
Getting to it.
Okay.
I'm just wondering how many hours have been allocated to one thing, the State Administrative Tribunal, which we've gone through the process and we're still going through the process. I wonder if the CEO or any of the Shire administration to be able to tell us that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hardesty. Questions like that are best submitted prior to the meeting so that we can give you an informed answer. So it's very difficult to then go through timesheets now and respond. But CEO, would you have a response, or we take that on notice?
I think we just take that on notice. Thanks, Chair
Thank you.
President.
Thank you, Mr Hardesty. Are there any further questions from the gallery? Moving on to item 6, presentations. There are none. Item 6.2 and moving on to item 6.3, deputations. Basan Tanakun, am I pronouncing that correctly? Yeah, that's good. Will that be good enough? All right, and you have you're doing a deputation regarding 8.1.2. It's the Bliss Festival approval.
Hello? Oh. Do I have a clicker?
Now, is there a limit? Just letting you know that there is a 10-minute limit for deputations.
Yep, got it, yeah.
And if you like, I'll give you a nod about, what, 1 minute to go?
Yep, sure. Okay. Thank you. Awesome. So, yeah, I'm here, Pasan here again, presenting about Bliss Festival, which I was here about a month or two ago to seek approval. So, just a summary of what's been occurring the last 2 months. In December, after SAT mediation, the Shire agreed to an on-site visit and reconsider the recommendation. So we do thank the Shire office for participating in this and considering the new information that has come to light, especially with our fire consultants. The conditional recommendation is a capacity of 350. Unfortunately, for both us as the Liberators and for Berry Delightful, this number is unviable financially. So the Liberators are currently time restricted because of this, because we're hoping for a better decision earlier. So we are hoping to seek the restriction of the numbers to be lifted back to the full capacity as per 2023. So Blissfest has been running for 3 years, as Mark mentioned before. We have comprehensive fire and risk management plans, and at this point in time it's been improved and upgraded by our fire safety contractor that we engaged this year. So to summarise the specific concerns that the Shire has in reducing these numbers is the total fire bans, bushfire evacuation management, proximity to the high fuel load bushland, which is just east of the property, and lack of fire shelter sanctuary. So equipment that we're bringing with us, thanks to the fire contractor we've engaged. We have 2 fire response tenders, 4,000 litres of water, and then also Mark's Ute mounted fire hydrant. And we also have an abundance of fire extinguishers at each of the locations, as you can see on the event site, and also firefighting equipment and blankets at the kitchen space. So we also have 4 career firefighters that are coming with the fire contractor. Level 2 incident controller, Gareth Deeg, he's the chief of fire for Blissfest, and this, as we understand it, combined with the equipment, the 2 fire tenders, it more than doubles the capacity currently in the bailing up area, because I understand you have 1 truck and on-duty personnel. Site fire safety training provided to all other operational staff and fire warden, in addition to the career firefighters. And also induction is, like a basic induction is provided to all volunteers as well. So this is the high fuel load area that was submitted in the council minutes. One of our concerns is that this is incorrectly displaying the Berry Delightful area, because that entire property is actually Berry Delightful over here, not just that strip of event site over there. And I'll give a bit of more of an explanation as to why. So as you can see from the closer detail of the Berry Delightful property and from inspection, for those who know the site, there are actually no high fuel load or high load areas within the within the Berry Delightful site itself. And there is a 200 metre clearance on average between the high load forest over there and the event site, including about 80 metres on average of dam. So this functions as a natural fire break from the high risk area. And a lot of the foliage you see around there and around here are actually, flower bushes and well reticulated trees. So that's again not close to high load 5, which was displayed on the map that was submitted as a part of the agenda. And it's very similar conditions to Lingalonga. I was there for New Year's actually, and I was talking to the fire, the DFS personnel on site there, and they gave the same explanation as to why Lingalonga is safe because of the clearance between the dam and the forest area, and the fact that the forest area is actually high uphill from the event site as well, which fire is known to travel 4 times slower downhill than uphill, which gives us all the time that we need to evacuate if needed. So the greater property map, you can see more detail around that, how there's a lot of reticulated fields that act as natural fire breaks between the high load area. And we are always ready to respond, so the Emergency WA Fire Chief is monitoring Emergency WA Site 24/3 thanks to the Starlink satellite internet connections we have on site, and he can communicate with the fire fighters as well as other wardens via two-way internal communications if required, and the fire chief can call an evacuation utilising the most optimal routes out of the property selected based on the prevailing conditions of the fire, which he will know based on the Emergency WA information. And all stages and mobile sound systems can be used to communicate this information to the participants. So this is the evacuation map. As you can see, like the basic evacuation map with fire sanctuary or sort of muster points in purple around this area. And moving on, also we have traffic management, and we have identified now 3 different points, like based on the driveway plus 3 exits along the main route. And I know a thing or two about traffic, and generally when you have traffic exiting, there's no bottleneck at the end because you have potential vehicles being able to exit straight onto the highway. And also there's alternative routes to the back of the property if needed as well. I'll show you that more in the next slide. So we have permission through Mark from the neighbouring properties to also use their exits as well in the event that we do need to use them, and they can be selected by the fire chief depending on the direction that the fire is actually coming from. So bushfire emergency evacuation, in summary, the fire chief, our level 2 incident controller, has confirmed in writing that he's confident that managing an evacuation for full capacity of 500 people is easily possible in the event of a fire, mostly due to the strategic positions and evacuation routes that are available as a part of the fire plan, and also due to early warning capabilities, because monitoring the emergency WA page 24/3, they'll be able to detect when a fire is coming well in advance of it reaching the property, and also which direction it is to select the optimal evacuation route. In the rare circumstance that an urgent evacuation is required, they can evacuate vehicles at a high occupancy capacity. So the firefighters are trained to ensure that people will fill up the vehicles, and we have segregation between vehicles and tents at Blissfest, so full segregation, which means that they can easily load up all the people into about 100 vehicles and exit the site by the main road in a very short amount of time. So my understanding is that the difference between 350 people and 500 people is only going to be a matter of minutes versus tens of minutes from the information by our specialist. Total fire ban scenario as well, as our fire consultant has stated, and it's in the event management plans. The equipment that the firefighters are bringing with them is sufficient to ensure that there is an exemption for the total fire ban in terms of movement of vehicles. So in the event that vehicles need to move during a total fire ban, we do have the necessary equipment on site to get the DFS approval. Obviously if there is a ban put in place while the event is in place, we will have all vehicles stopped and not moving. And again, in the circumstance that we do need to move them, then we followed by firefighting personnel with the firefighting equipment necessary to achieve this. So yeah, any other questions? I'm open to be asked as well. Mark, do you have more to say as well?
You have a minute to go, gentlemen.
Any questions?
Have you finished the presentation? The deputation?
Yeah, part of the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
okay.
here to answer any questions, so
Right.
happy to answer any more questions
All right,
around
Councillor.
the event. And
Okay.
Mark's happy to answer questions around
Thank
the
you.
property.
So, councillors, any questions?
I've got a few, but I'll start off firstly with just obviously it's no smoking. What's the rules on vapes?
Sorry?
On vapes, are people vaping?
We don't have any specific rules around vapes. That's not something we've thought of actually, but that's something we can implement in terms of areas where people who do want to use vapes. We do know that our demographic is very low, if not at all, in terms of smokers and vapers, because our festival in its nature is a health and wellness event. It's not necessarily like a party event, and obviously it's a drug and alcohol free event as well. So generally the sort of people we attract are people who don't often vape or smoke. But yeah, we do have a smoking policy in that, there's no smoking in any of the areas. There is certain undercover areas where if people do want to smoke, they can smoke. And that's something we can implement for vapers as well.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. Just one question. I appreciate you've got access to all the make announcements and things from all the stages.
Yeah.
And you've also demonstrated the distance between the high fire load and the main stage type area.
Yeah.
However, the camping area
Yeah.
directly backs on pretty much that fire higher load. What's the communication strategy if you needed to evacuate that area, which is
Yeah.
set aside from all those other areas where the stages and sounds and all that sort of stuff is?
Yeah, so first point is that, and that's definitely a very good point. Thanks to that. So the high fire load area is actually, if I put it, it's gone. But it's to the east of the property. The bushland that's backing to the campground has been burnt, as far as I know, in the last 5 years or 3 years or something like that. The fire load is actually the private property that is east and north. So between that property and the campground, there is still another, I believe it was close to 100 metres. So as you can see, like the area sort of backing the campsite has been burnt, but the red area, there is one grass field, and then there is the track, and then there's another grass field, and that is the campground. The grass field that's on the other side of the track that's backing into that. Yeah, so that's the campground there, yeah. And from the comms point of view, I mentioned there that we have mobile sound systems as well. These are 12-volt battery-powered loudspeakers that we can pull on both trolleys and vehicles, and they can be used to announce to a large area.
Any more questions, Councillor? Councillor Shand?
Thank you for giving us this report. Can I just clarify that what you're saying is that if 350 is unviable, you won't hold it this year, but you will need 500 to be able to hold it this year?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So saying that, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, at this stage, unfortunately, we were hoping for the full capacity to approve in the recommendation, which was communicated a couple of weeks ago. But at this stage, we have still held off on issuing contracts and stuff. So the likely scenario is that we may need to postpone the event again to December or January of this year, so next summer. But we do still hope to get the event approved so we can begin work on it rather than lose another year, which would definitely pretty much make us go under. So yeah, that's the situation. So we do only have 4 weeks away. So that's sort of the call that we're going to have to make after this.
Okay, so if it doesn't go ahead in February, March,
Yeah.
you're looking to do it in December or January, which is, part of the policy we're trying to avoid right now. as far as fire goes.
Yeah.
So my second question is in relation to policing of illicit drugs and smoking. How do you propose with those numbers to do that?
So we do have checks, like generally questions and checks at the gate. That said, we have run this event for multiple years in the past and other events in Perth as well, like non-festival events. And we haven't had any issues before because, again, the demographic we typically attract are the people who aren't really interested in drugs and alcohol anyway. Yeah, fortunately, we've had it easy in that respect in our history of running this event and others.
Any other questions? Councillor Lindeman?
Yep, sure. Because of the time of year and you know that we've had fires recently, sometimes those fires may not be near where you are. However, resources will be used to fight those fires if they're in and around this area. What are your, I suppose, plan or contingency plans on what you might do? Because that may leave you exposed if you don't have backup or perhaps, you know, helicopters or whatever come down to get the water if they're fighting other fires in other areas which can light up.
Yep, and that's definitely fair, and that's one of the reasons why we have firefighters on site as well. So there'll be 4 firefighters with some pretty heavy equipment there. And the idea is that it's not necessarily that the firefighters will need to actually fight and subdue the fire completely, but the idea is to give us enough time to actually evacuate all the personnel on the site onto the main road. And in the event that there is a fire and then there is a fire that doesn't have the local resources to be completely extinguished, then the Chief of Fire, who's experienced for about 10 years in running events like this, he will make the call to evacuate to make sure everyone is out of the property as soon as possible.
Thank you. Councillors? Councillor Shand?
I'll skip on from that one. With Lingalonga, you mentioned Lingalonga, we actually put in the conditions and they agreed to it that should there be catastrophic fire warning, that they would cancel an event. Are you prepared to also have that same philosophy?
So that's, as I understand, like a total fire ban or like a catastrophic alert? Or...
No, not a total fire
operations?
ban, where the conditions are catastrophic.
Okay, yep, that's something we would be open to considering, yeah.
Would you like to fill in whether there's I think it's an actual level of fire?
Yeah, it's just a fire danger rating, so
Okay.
anything above high,
Yeah.
we would consider to get into that high risk range,
Yeah.
catastrophic being the highest.
Yeah, what we would likely do is put that through to our fire consultant as well, because he's connected with and he's the one who will be doing the exemptions for total fire bans as well in the event that one of those occurred during the event in movement of vehicles. And yeah, he will be making the necessary call on, you know, whether there is any exemptions that can be made, and if not, then to call to cancel the event. And then if that is the result of that, that's what will occur.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell?
In point E, it talks about written confirmation of suitability of access and egress to be supplied by WA Fire at least 7 days prior to the event.
Yep.
This is to include the identified emergency routes are capable of being traversed by two-wheel drive and vehicles under towing. My first question is 7 days? Like, how would you feel if 7 days before that it wasn't approved? You know, where would that leave you?
I suppose in the reality of conditional approvals, and you know, I've been running events for a while now, and unfortunately, that would mean that we would, if the document didn't get approved, then yeah, we would have to cancel, and that's generally the situation with other health conditions that event approvals typically come with. We do have a time frame in the lead up to the event to meet those, but yeah, I
And
understand
another
that.
question, if I may.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell.
Also, two-wheel drive vehicles, there's vehicles and there's vehicles.
Yeah,
Are there, and bearing in mind, Mark, I've
probably, yeah.
seen your property on regular occasions driving past.
Riding horses too, eh?
Yes, and riding horses and slipping down that steep hill, but that's another story, coming down the gravel pit. that's another story. But on the strength of the condition of the track, are you know, because basically there's very likelihood that there's smaller vehicles, lower clearance and all that sort of thing. So the tracks along the alternate routes, are they, you know, going to be graded, bare earth? What's the preparation for
The fire to the forest to the northwest of us, that's just been burnt 3 years ago, and it's a well-graded track. Anyone can drive over that.
Okay.
That's the one in the top right-hand corner there, that grey going up to the northwest. That's a well-graded track. It's used by my next-door neighbour because he doesn't want to open gates all the time, so he uses the forestry track right adjacent to his property, as you can see that in the corner there. There's basically 2 accesses out of there into the forest, which a 2-wheel drive can quite easily do. And then there's another 2 accesses to the southeast, which come onto my neighbour's Battle Axe subdivision down in the bottom right-hand corner there. And there's 4 exits onto the main highway, right? So 8 exits. If we have 8 exits to choose at any time, and most the ones on my neighbours, it's a gravelled road. He's just graded that. He's only got a 2-wheel drive, and the other ones, and of course 2-wheel drives can quite easily exit our property.
Yeah, I was thinking about the one running along the dam. There is
The one running along the dam.
Yeah,
Easy as
highways.
pie. If you want to
Okay.
come and have a look, and it's
No,
quite
that's
easy.
fine. Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you, Mark.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Glover?
Your willingness to abide by all of the, I think there's like 26 conditions on here, apart from what you're saying is, I think it's Part E. No, it wasn't Part E, that's what you were talking about the 350 patrons. But you are happy, or you have the ability to comply to all of those other 25 conditions that have been placed in this report. Is it all doable for you?
Yes, correct. And those conditions, they're not exactly the same, but they're very similar to the conditions that we got in the previous 3 years as well, around health and safety and other conditions. So that's something we are very capable of abiding by.
Yeah, so your only concern would be B, 2B, which is the maximum accommodation number of 350 people on the site at one time. That's your only concern.
Correct,
is that?
yeah. That's the only one that's unviable, unfortunately, for Very Delightful and Liberators. Yeah. Because essentially it means that there's a minimum number of staff and volunteers that are required to run an event like that, typically at least 100. And artists and performers as well. So that basically means we can only sell about 200 to 250 tickets, and that then becomes outside well under the cost of running the event.
Thank you for that. I'd like to ask Director of Operations, if you were able to answer, what is the driver? What risk is being mitigated by dropping the number from 500 to 350? What is the risk that we are signing away if we up the number?
Thank you, Madam President, if I may. The risk has been determined by a number of experts, so in particular our Community Emergency Services Manager, so Jess, Max as our Chief Fire Control Officer. Max has also consulted the local captains, the DFIS District Officer, and when they do that in conjunction with the Bushfire Management bushfire risk management plan, which is what we've referred to there with some of the shading, and obviously a heap of experience. But they also take into account lots of other things, in particular in this site, topography and points of refuge. There is some differences of opinion on the area for refuge, and you mentioned Lingalonga. They have taken that into account. They know the sites, both sites, very well. They also look at what resources would be required in the event of an emergency. So what they're saying to us as their officers is that in the event of an emergency in that location, given our resources and our experience, we would limit patrons to 350. So that is that's a fairly substantial amount of experience making a decision based on a number of parameters, but primarily risk.
Thank you, Roscoe. Councillors, are there any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple. Just with the food, you'd have food supplied, food vans, is that
Yes,
right?
correct,
So they're going to run
yeah.
on generators?
So they run on mains power from the Berry Delightful property. So we don't need to use additional generators to power the food area. And the food area is basically just adjacent to the house. We have set up a temporary undercover area for that. And that's run by a professional caterer for the operation.
And could I also ask, mobile coverage, could you sort of drop into the valley there? What's your mobile coverage like?
So the mobile coverage itself isn't great. That said, we are bringing 3 Starlink satellite internet dishes with us, which we use to provide full internet service for all the volunteers, staff, firefighters, etc.
Councillor Mitchell? Oh, sorry.
Well, it deviates a little,
Councillor
I guess, from, thank you, sorry. It does deviate from fire risk to, I was just wanted to ask you about, you've got the floating pontoon.
Yes.
Yep. Who monitors the overcrowding? I know they have these pontoons everywhere, and my
Yep.
grandson. They don't limit numbers to who can get on or how many at a time. So how are you managing that?
So we have lifeguards, 2 lifeguards on duty at all times when the dam is open. So one is actually at the entrance ramp, and then we also set up like their own inflatable, kind of like a tower that's sort of floated and anchored to the bottom of the dam. So that the lifeguard that's at the tower next to the pontoon is the one who enforces the number capacity on the pontoon, and also if there's an incident, that lifeguard has easy access to the area.
Any other Councillor Mitchell?
Just off the top of your head, and I'm sorry, I should have done my homework, what was the attendance at the last couple of events?
It was about 500, including the participants, including volunteers. The one before that was somewhere in the 400s, and then the one before that was smaller, like I think it was around about the 350 to 400. That said, the costs and pricing structure that we have now is very different to what it was 5 years ago.
Thank you. Councillors, any more questions?
Also
more
to clarify around the food as well. The food vendors are all inclusive, so people buying a ticket to Blissfest has all-inclusive food for the weekend, and that's one of the strategies we prevent people from bringing their own cooking equipment to site. Just thought I'd clarify that as well.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Passan, for such a very comprehensive presentation.
No worries.
Well done.
Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
having me again.
Moving on to 6.4, there are no delegate reports. And item 7, reports of committees, we have none. And then on to reports of officers at item 8. So item 8.1.1, flowing on from the presentation, the Bliss Festival 2025 event application reconsideration request. This involves 2 recommendations, and I'll just hand over to our CEO to explain the process that we're adopting.
Yeah, thanks very much, Shire President. So, councillors, item 8.1.1 is the first step of probably a two-step process this evening in regards to the Bliss Festival 2025. So the first one is largely a procedural motion and is a requirement under the Local Government Act and regulations. We might just take a step back through the officer's report, and in regards to the background, Council will recall that at the ordinary meeting of the 27th of November, you resolved a number of limbs to the resolution. The first one is that you consider it as an event application as temporary works. The next one is Council decided to refuse that application, and the main reason for that refusal was around the extreme bushfire risk, which obviously has been the focus of the discussions this evening to date. After that decision was made, the appeal rights under, I guess, the broader administrative law principles, the landowner on behalf of the event applicant referred the matter to the State Administrative Tribunal, that being SAT, and there was a mandatory confidential mediation hearing which was attended by obviously representatives from the applicant, the landowner, and myself and council staff. That occurred on the 20th of December. As an attachment to the officer's report is a copy of those orders, and I guess the crux of those orders is requesting or inviting council to review that refusal, that original decision, based on, I guess, some discussions that happened at the mediation, site visits that were undertaken subsequent to that mediation, and a discussion between fire experts, both from the applicant's perspective and the landowner's perspective, but also council's perspective, and as has been outlined by Mr Marshall. So essentially, councillors, what this recommendation or this report is seeking council to do is to actually revoke the council resolution of the 27th of November, and if in the event that council does decide to revoke that decision and that motion is passed, then essentially it then clears the decks and allows you to assess the next item, which is 8.1.2, which is essentially the revised or the refreshed application. So it's largely a procedural motion. I'll remind councillors that voting requirement, given the fact that it is a revocation, or we call it rescission, is an absolute majority. So is that enough of an outline, Chair President?
Thank you, CEO. On that note, councillors, would someone like to move the executive recommendation that council revoke Council Resolution 204-1124 to enable reconsideration of the event application Bliss Festival 25? Councillor Shand and Councillor Patrick seconding. All in favour? Oh, sorry, would you like to speak to the motion first, or you just want to go straight to vote? All in favour? Carried unanimously. So moving on to 8.1.2, the Bliss Festival 2025 event application. Would councillors like to move the executive recommendation that Council 1 considers the event application Bliss Festival 2025 as temporary? I'm not going to read it all out, I'll just read out the one. Works and therefore exempt from development approval under clause 61.1.8.17 and 61.2.f of the Planning and Development Local Planning Schemes Regulations 2015 with the following conditions listed under point 2. Councillor Patrick and Councillor Glover seconding. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the...
Thank you. Yeah, look, I wasn't here for the November meeting, unfortunately, where I actually probably would have supported the initial application. I would like to propose that the 350 be reviewed and modified to the 500. From my perspective, looking at what we have approved previously, and yes, taking Lingalonga into account, I appreciate that they are different sites. However, from an access and egress point of view, the road in and out of Lingalonga is a hell of a lot harder to get in and out of. And
Councillor Patrick, would you like to move an amendment? Because we need to raise them.
yeah, okay, if that's what I need to do it, then I'll move an amendment to change it to back to the 500 as
So
the
we
initial
have the original
application.
motion up, and so you're moving the amendment now, sorry.
No, that's good, thanks. Yeah.
And would someone like to second that amendment? Councillor Glover? Okay, Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to your
Yeah,
amendment?
cheers. Sorry, well, as I said, I think I appreciate all the effort that's gone into it, and I do appreciate the expertise that's come from the Shire administration's perspective. But I also do, acknowledge the expertise that comes from the external consultants. I think given the location, the fact that it is literally metres away from a main highway that can be blocked with their traffic control, that there is those multiple means of egress, it's not a significant journey to get out to a main point of egress for these people in these cars. Again, comparing it to Lingalonga, I've done that drive a lot of times. It's not easy to get in and out of there in any quick way. And I think it would be unreasonable and unfair to sort of put this in exactly the same category as that for that reason. I think the access to the highway is a significant benefit and should be taken into consideration. And as a result, I think that the 500 people, it's run 3 times previously. Admittedly, only one of those has probably had that number. But the other side of it is it won't be 500 at all times by the sound of it. If you've got different performers, different actors, generally they'll do their thing and not necessarily stay there for that whole duration. But I don't think it's unreasonable. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Glover, would you like to speak?
Yeah, just thank you for that. That was summing up most of what I was going to say as well. But my other point was, in comparison to, say, Lingalonga, what we spoke about in that was that it was at the base of a hill, and we know that fire behaviour, unless the wind's really strong, is likely to take the fire up the hill and not down the hill. And this is a similar situation. So I feel that it's quite comparable in that way, that it makes it safer for the people at the bottom of the hill as well. But also, where the venue is, it's so close to the highway as well that it's easy for people to come out. 150 people more does not mean 150 cars. Most people don't travel to these venues on their own. So it wouldn't equate to 150 cars trying to get out. It would be 150 people, which has been explained to us today that does not take a great amount of time to evacuate more people as well. So I have the greatest respect for the people who've prepared this information for us to view, as in our Shire staff and also the people who've been consulted, but I would support the amendment for 500 people.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Would anyone like to speak against the amended motion? Councillor Shan.
Only because I'd like to see a couple of other clauses amended. I'd like to foreshadow that motion, please.
Thank you, Councillor Shan. Councillor Lindeman, would anyone like to speak for or against the motion? The amended motion. Councillor Lindeman.
Okay. This is going to surprise everyone, but I am against the amendment. And I love a festival. I love that these people are putting something on, they're putting it together, drug and alcohol free, music, entertainment, all the things that I enjoy and would go to. But I do not know enough about fire. And I can only put my faith in the experts. I mean, we go to the launch of this $1.6 million new fire shed. We've experienced fires very close to home, and the fear that people had and their possible reaction isn't always calm, it isn't always orderly. It doesn't matter that there's a highway. People sometimes don't behave well. The other thing is the topography, to me, is a concern because it is actually on quite a strong slope. I know from my point of view as a van owner, you spin your wheels and you don't go anywhere. So those things sort of concern me. They're not like normal two-wheel drive vehicles. And vans are really quite a choice for the people that they're attracting often because we like to sleep in them. So I guess for me, it's not that I don't love it. I think it's just the time of year. The topography is different to every other place that we've allowed. There's less room, more growth. And I know they're saying they're other sorts of trees, but in the heat of a 40-degree day, everything ignites. And, you know, that's why houses burn hundreds of metres away from any fire because embers carry. And I can't, in good conscience, feel that I'd be doing the right thing going against experts because I'm not one. So I'm against amending that and keeping it at the 350.
Thanks, Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Mitchell, would you like to speak to the motion? No.
Do you mind if I just
I
make
would-
a comment?
Sorry?
Do you mind if I just make a comment procedurally?
Yes.
Yes, I guess, councillors, and obviously Shire President, you're chairing the meeting, but just wanted to maybe suggest that if Councillor Shand was looking at foreshadowing a motion, obviously we can't have two amendments on foot, whether you wanted to state what the form of that could look like. If it's in addition to what's being suggested now, that might provide a more holistic debate.
So my suggestion is that we negotiate the amount of people from 350 up to 500, and seeing as it probably isn't in March, that we actually state that it cannot be held in January. If it's held in December, I'd like to get that on record because we had Meliora in December, and Meliora has far greater numbers than this and has a burden of easement for fire. So, you know, I think that this is, the amount of work that's gone into this is quite sufficient, but that we make notation in the conditions that it be held in December and not January. So those two, that we negotiate the numbers and that it's held at a different time of the year and that we cap that time.
Sorry, Diana, is the notation is to not be held in December? Is that what you were saying? To be held in December?
Not in January. Our fires have been in January historically.
January.
Let's get a point of clarification. As part of the application, I understand it's being foreshadowed to be held in April, is that correct? March, April this year? No? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you. Now, going back to the amended motion. Yes, thank you. Now, Councillor Mitchell isn't replying or speaking on the motion. Okay. I would like to speak to the motion, and I'll be speaking against it. As chair of the Local Emergency Management Committee, I have developed a very healthy respect for the expertise, the knowledge, the capacity, the capabilities, the understanding of what limitations and what opportunities are available in fighting a fire, and for me to second guess because I think the lay of the land, or I think this vehicle might be okay, or that this might be whatever, you know, might be easy, considered easy. And Pasan, I know you said that a fire can be slower if it's going downhill or whatever, but we don't have the knowledge of the experts from CESM, from Max Walker, and from our firefighting community. And for me to second guess them and have an event be impacted by fire, there's no coming back from there. And I'm standing quite firmly against the amendment. If my expertise at hand says to me, we can cope with 350, I believe them. Because there's not just this event at play at this time of year, we have 48% of our shire covered in forest. And this is what they estimate against, you know, our entire scenario. So that's where I stand. Now, how do I proceed, CEO, from the amended motion? Do we vote on that?
Yep, so we've got an amendment on foot which just talks about the 500 increase, so adopting as per the officer's report, but the amendment to 2B and B to change it from 350 to a maximum of 500. So that's the
so
amendment.
We can go ahead on that.
So you go ahead and vote it, but now that Councillor Shan has foreshadowed it, councillors may want to, as part of their voting on this amendment, bear that in mind. So obviously you can't have two amendments on the go at the same time. Yeah, so that's, I guess, procedurally the way forward.
CEO. So we're now in a position to vote on the amendment. Those in favour? Oh, I beg your pardon. Right of reply, Grant. I'm sorry.
That's okay, thank you. Look, yeah, all I wanted to say was, I guess, heard what others have said, but ultimately what I think is happening at the moment, I feel we're discounting the experience and the qualifications of external consultants. So WA5 particularly, graduated from DFES school in 2006, graduated as a dux from the station officer school in 2016, so that was after 10 years experience as a firefighter. And then has been operating this business for sort of 12, 13 years. So I think we're discounting a lot of experience and knowledge from someone who specifically does what they're doing. I'm also wanting to flag that we're not talking about fighting a fire. We're talking about the ability to evacuate people. We've got permanent, qualified firefighters on site whose role will be to evacuate people from site, not to fight a fire. So I just want to flag that and put that into people's minds for their consideration. We're not fighting a fire, we're evacuating people, and that extra additional 150 people, we've got 4 qualified firefighters plus trained volunteers on site to support that, which is why I support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. And now we'll put that to vote. Those in favour? And those against? That's a tied vote. We'll casting vote from the chair, and that's against. I'm sorry. Thank you. So we go back to the original motion as it stands in. Oh, do we need to consider the foreshadowed? Do I need to consider?
Yep. So, councillors, so where we're at is we're back to the original motion that was moved by Councillor Patrick and seconded by Councillor Glover, which is actually the officer recommendation. Not wanting to control the meeting, however, should Councillor Shand wish to propose an amendment to the motion, then she's welcome to do so.
Thank you, CEO. Your comments and guidance is welcome. Councillor Shand?
As they stated, 350 people isn't going to be sufficient. So I hope we apply the same principle to Meliora next year, or this year.
Did you want to move an
December, it's no point because they can't run it. So there's no point. There's no point.
You haven't got a motion? Okay. Thanks, Councillor Shand. So we go back to the original motion, which was moved by Councillor Patrick, seconded by Councillor Glover. Councillor oh, sorry. I've got...
Sorry. Just
Up to the mic.
Sorry. Just for Councillor Shand's benefit, I guess, the applicant still has the right to go to SAT. So if there are concerns about the time of year, it would be really helpful for council to make that clear in any decision that's made, only that can then be provided through the SAT process as well for their consideration. So that's just a suggestion.
Okay, well, in favour of that, then I would say December and not January would be what I would propose. And if we can negotiate the numbers, then great.
And what item was that in the decision? In the recommendation, sorry?
It says in the original one to approve the event 28th of February to 3rd of March. Well, it's too late for that. So if they were to give us a date in December, then that would be very helpful.
Isn't that fundamentally altering everything we've got here? We'd need another assessment on...
It's entirely up to council how they want it. Sorry, it's not very helpful of me. It was more that...
I'm concerned that that change in month might require another review on other areas of fire risk or whatever that's in there now. It kind of upsets the balance.
Sorry, Madam President, if I may, it's still within the prohibited period. So December to March is the high fire danger period, so it's still within that period.
So
if
we
I
was-
may suggest, maybe outside that period would be more favourable.
So,
Could I ask a
Councillor
question,
Shand,
please?
If you, sorry, what was that?
Oh, just could I ask a question?
Councillor
on?
Lindemann.
Yeah, could I just ask a question on that? Can we dictate without consulting these people when the best time of year for them economically viability to hold such an event? Are we to be dictating that, or is that for them to apply and make those financial and business decisions for their own event and not for us to tell them?
Councillor Shand, you're not happy for it to, perhaps you're happy for it to come to council at that time and we consider the date at that time with that application.
Well, as Michelle said, and as the people who are applying for this said, they said the next date would be December or January. And as our fires are usually in January and we approved Meliora in December,
Can I
we
suggest
want
we suspend
consistency.
standing orders and get under the
All
point?
right.
Yep.
We'll vote to suspend standing orders, I suggest. Would someone like to pass that we do suspend? Councillor Glover, seconded by Councillor Patrick. Thank you. All in favour? Thank you. Right, quite tricky. What are the implications of changing this application now? For me, I need to know, is this change impacting anything else throughout all of the conditions and all the work that's been done here and the input that's been provided by experts? Are we changing anything?
Madam President, if I may, I think the crux of the issue for operations really is the fire, the time of the year with the fire risk, which we've certainly talked about and willing to embellish that. As you're aware, we did consult some fairly experienced people, let's be honest. And similar to previous events that we've talked about, we tried to encourage the applicants, because that's all we can do, is to move out of that high fire risk period. With due respect, fire will happen when it wants to happen. Fire will travel where it wants to travel. The risk parameters, we go back to the fundamentals, which is then our base reference is the Bushfire Risk Management Plan, which should be going to the LEMC next week as an update. So I think that would be our primary concern. The rest of our concerns, dare I say it, are covered by the conditions and also some other items in the conditions that we still need other information on. What I'm really pleased about is every time we've sort of engaged with the applicant and the landowner, they've been proactive. I'll have to acknowledge that. I really appreciate that. And even today we saw some new information which we haven't seen before, which again gave me a bit more, I guess I was motivated by that. There's still some other issues with noise that we need to address. The fire side of it, like I respect the qualifications of WA Fire, but that person is not in charge of the incident. The incident is controlled by our Chief Fire Control Officer, and if it goes to a level 2, it's controlled by DFIS. They also do not have authority to write out their own permits. So I respect that they will understand the procedure and what information to provide, but they don't have that authority. So I think there's a lot of things like that we need to work through, and we probably can work through. But primarily, that prohibited fire period is the concern we have with the resources we have to safely fight a fire in that location. End of story.
If I can just add to that, when we discuss the high threat period and what's the, for want of a better description, level of comfort in numbers, the advice from the CESM was that anything during the high threat period could be supported at a reduced capacity, and that magic number, if you like, was 350. So that's where Shire staff, I guess, are sitting. The rest of the conditions are pretty standard conditions for any event, doesn't matter what time of the year they are. but the fire stuff is different. And it's acknowledged that there could be a difference between the applicant's consultants and our staff, and either that's for council to make a call on or for the State Administrative Tribunal to make that determination.
Can I just ask then, if we were to change this wording, Director of Ops and Planner, Manager of Planning, Manager of Development Services, how would we accommodate the wording for the amendment that Councillor Shan's proposing?
I think it would need to be quite specific, Madam President, just in the case of if this was appealed at SAT, we're actually talking about something tangible rather than a negotiable. I think the only, just thinking aloud, maybe it's an item that can be referred to mediation.
Councillor Shand, have you got wording prepared?
No, because I didn't know that December, January was being proposed, so that March was not going to happen. Even if it was the end of November, beginning of December, we just did 2, Dark Down South and Meliora. So, you know, I can't see the difference here, honestly.
For the wording?
That the applicant be given the opportunity to change the dates for, do the applicants even know when? When? Yeah, okay.
We can't do that.
Yeah. So,
Just,
to allow them the opportunity to revisit their dates.
right, put that, are we going to...
I think to provide certainty, through you, Shire President, I'll defer to my staff, but I would have thought that we would just amend number 2 and you just put in an updated date time frame as per Councillor Shan's.
To approve an event outside the high threat area.
Well, that's not what she's asking, no. So you're suggesting that we limit the approval to between November, so maybe the 1st of November, and the event must occur between 1st of November and 30th of December. Is that my understanding of you? Yeah. So we're just changing that.
Can I ask though?
Yeah, just
You're going to change
resource
that.
point of view.
And I was just trying to...
Christmas, New Year is one of the areas we tried to avoid in the past. Yeah,
About to say that we're on limited volunteer staff too as school holidays begin. So if they can work within November to mid-December, yeah.
That's palatable, yeah. But I just wanted to get some wording at least down on the page, Shire President, so...
1st of November to mid-December.
I'm just a bit confused because if you do that, you're still saying 350 though, aren't you? You haven't
Yes.
changed the 350, so you're not really helping them if they need more numbers to make the money.
No, we're not changed, we voted,
So-
we voted on the 350.
Yeah,
So
so
that stays.
I guess my question is why you're changing the date if they need 500 to make the money? Wouldn't matter when they hold it if they've got 350 people.
If I may,
So wouldn't that change it again? If you said if you were outside of that date range, then you could approve the 500 and not 350. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Okay.
Yeah, if the 350 is purely related to the fire risk, but we're saying it has to be held in a period outside that fire risk, the 350 should be null and void. But again, we're still... But even the references that
Any
came
money.
through from Roscoe was around
That's-
fighting the fire and
That's in
resources to
fire-
fight the fire.
fire risk
Fire's going
time.
to be there regardless. If a fire was going to break out, it's the fire behaviours and the activities that increase the risk of causing fire that, to me, is where the numbers really come into play. Because again, we're not talking about fighting a fire, we're talking about evacuation. So local resources and things are almost irrelevant to that evacuation. The evacuation would happen before local resources even turn up.
Can I just ask,
Sorry, CEO.
probably just, can I just ask 2 questions through you, Shire President, just to the staff, if that's okay? Yeah. Maybe just for my own clarity, can you just confirm the actual high fire, when that period kicks in? Is it the 1st of December and goes through to 31st of March? And secondly, in the event that the applicant held the event outside, let's say middle weekend of November, do you believe that may change the experts? I know it's a little bit of a pie in the sky, but would that favourably for the applicant impact on the numbers that would be approved? Would we look at that number and increasing it from 350 to 500 if it was outside that high risk timeframe?
Yeah, that's actually quite an easy question. Thank you. It's nice to get an easy one because we've actually already had that discussion, and that's why I've encouraged the applicant to be outside of that high threat period, and certainly we've talked about 500 outside that period.
Thank you. Is this next year? At the end of this year? Instead of this year?
Yes, it's this year. It's 2020.
Instead of February.
No, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Madam President, could I ask a question?
Just a second. Just
Yeah. Yeah. There's no point.
Sorry, Councillor Lindemann.
I guess my question is, the people are here now, is there any question that we can ask that gives them the opportunity to hold the event in which we are in agreement, very supportive of, but are finding that the date and times aren't going to work well? Is it possible just to ask if they have, a plan B, C or D that may suit, which allows us to give them the 500 people and the event to run, just not at this specific time?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. We're not in standing orders, so Bassam, would you like to answer a couple of questions? Do you want to hop up there?
Yeah.
Hold on, and you see it turn orange on the front.
Need you to wiggle your ears.
Put your tongue to the left.
Yeah.
I don't know if we get rid of that altogether, but we could say accommodate numbers from 350 up to 500, as long as it's outside the high risk area.
Now, Bassam,
Step aside, Mr Marshall. Let Mrs Clifford. So that, I guess it is put in November date outside the high risk bushfire. 500. Yep. Did you want to?
Yep. All right, awesome.
thank you, Bassam, for your patience. Now, my question for you,
Yep.
and Director of Finance Corporate, correct me if I'm wrong, my question for you is, would a date outside the high-risk fire period, where we can accommodate 500 people, would that be palatable?
It's challenging because of the nature of activities in the event. We use the dam quite heavily, and there are activities that would make it unappealing for a lot of our customer base, so it might be difficult to then sell tickets if it was held outside of the summer period. And also
November would be not acceptable? November?
We'll have to have a look, but I mean, it's something like when I said December, we were hoping around like mid-December or end of December, somewhere around there. But yeah, November, as I understand, just looking at the temperature ranges for Donnybrook bailing up, it was substantially lower on average than in December, and that's where we do believe that, a summer event is what Blissfest is. Like, there are other events that we run that are more applicable for or like other events that I'm involved in other organisations that are more applicable for other times, but Blissfest, similar to Wild Camp Out, for example, it's very much a summertime event. But it's something we could probably, like, you know, if this is going to go to SAT anyway, it could be organised at a mediation level. Particularly what I'd like to see is having the fire officers, the local fire officers and the DFS personnel potentially involved in the mediation as well, because I'm not sure if these personnel are aware of the level of precautions and fire personnel that are going to be on site. Because having worked in festivals for the past 10 years, the amount of precautions that we're taking for a festival of this size is way above industry standard, like significantly by miles above industry standard of any festival.
So the answer to the question would be that it's not feasible for you to hold the festival in November or outside the peak season.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Mitchell.
As a child that swam in dams a great deal, November, water freezing.
Yep.
March, water warm.
Correct.
Because it hasn't cooled down. So, and March is outside that. No, March. Sorry? 31. Okay, no, so that's not relevant. Thank you.
Yeah, March is definitely viable for us. And that's again where mediation could come in with the fire safety officers from the Shire, because I don't think, I believe, again, I'm not sure what's going through their head, but I believe they're not aware of the level of precautions and the level of personnel and equipment we have on site. That's significantly higher than any event I know in Western Australia of that size. And their one purpose is to ensure the safety of the personnel and safe evacuation in the event of an emergency.
Thank you, Pisan. CEO O'Connor, can I ask you to restate our position as we stand for Council as we're making our way forward?
So I guess from officers' perspective, Shire President and councillors, we maintain the original recommendation. I think through the discussion with the applicant and indeed the landowner, I think from officers' perspective, we're relatively comfortable if the event was to be held outside that peak fire risk area, that we would be happy to recommend from an officer perspective to limit or increase the limit from 350 to 500. But that's probably where we're standing from an officer perspective. It's up to council to make your determination and decision tonight. And as has been foreshadowed in the officer's report, in the event, whatever the decision that council has made, that the applicant doesn't agree with it, then they can go to appeal at SAT, and the independent umpire will make a determination.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor. Would councillors like to vote to restore standing orders, and then we go back to our first motion, our original motion?
Yeah. So could I ask before we do that number 2's not going ahead? Right. So number 2 will be removed and we're just going back to the standard.
You go back.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so councillors, when you reinstate standing orders, then the motion before council is the substantive motion that was moved by Councillor Patrick and seconded by Councillor Glover, which is the officer's recommendation. In the event that you obviously have the prerogative to move any further amendments based on the discussion that was had when standing orders were suspended.
And when we return, Councillor Patrick, you've spoken to the motion. Councillor Glover, as a seconder, you haven't. Okay. So we just need to reinstate. Right. So we reinstate standing orders.
I didn't. I got cut off because we had to talk to the amendment that I proposed, so not the initial motion.
Okay. All right, we can do that. Okay, would someone like to move that we restore standing orders? Councillor Patrick, seconded by Councillor Shand. All in favour? Okay. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, only briefly in that, I still support the motion to make sure it gets on the table and it gives the opportunity for the applicants to progress if they do determine that they can make it viable with the 350 based on what we've got. Obviously, SAT may come up with something different, but at least to make sure that there is an opportunity there for them and for the community to actually participate in a drug-free, alcohol-free event in a good location. So yeah, I think it should be supported, albeit at this 350 as against a greater number. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Glover.
I'll be speaking against this motion as it stands. I don't believe that it's not viable for these applicants to have this festival, which is a really good festival. That it appears to be a good festival for our community, but restricting it to 350 people, I'll be speaking against it.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Lindeman.
Sure. I support this motion. I would really like to see some more negotiation go on. I want the festival to go ahead. There's only one really sticking point, and I'm not here to market it, but, is it more boutique style, more individual, a little more close-knit? Does that add a couple more dollars to help cover it? I don't know. But I would really like to see it go ahead. I have participated in swims in the ocean down in Albany in April. It's cool, but it's not cold. So there could be a slant to that, you get your beanie on and have a bit of fun and, maybe go for a Wim Hof cool swim. I don't know. But I hope that you get to negotiate this and it does go ahead, but I have to respect our professionals in the firefighting industry.
Thank you, Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Shand, Councillor Mitchell.
I'm for this event, but as I've stated, I'm against some of the points. Therefore, I will be voting against because I believe that we have permitted these things in the past with larger numbers, and I'd like to see consistency.
Thank you, Councillor Shand. Would anyone like to speak to Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, I'll be voting for the item. I actually take on board everything that was said about the expertise, and I didn't really make up my mind until I drove past the earlier fire and noted how it had run in all directions when it first started and how it took off in the heavy bush. So yeah, I am guided totally by our officers and the experienced crew. Yes, there's something else, but I'm sure that can wait. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. I'd also like to speak for the motion. I've a wonderful respect, a huge respect for our local expertise in firefighting and for Max Walker and our CESM. So I'll be voting for the motion. Councillor Patrick, right of reply?
No, I think everyone said what they want to say, including me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Can I just say something?
CEO O'Connor?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so councillors, just a reminder, I don't want to get involved in the voting and obviously the debate. The matter is formally before council. However, as this is a matter that's been brought back to council, it does require an absolute majority for whatever the decision is to go through.
Thank you. And an absolute majority is 5 councillors.
Say again?
5 councillors.
Absolute majority is 5 councillors, that's correct, yes, 5 councillors, and the casting vote doesn't count as part of our absolute majority vote.
Councillors will put this to vote. Those in favour? And those against? It's not carried.
So that motion is lost. Apologies. So yeah, councillors, just procedurally, as I foreshadowed, it was required an absolute majority, which is 5 councillors. It only receives the 3 and 3, and then the casting vote. But the casting vote just double checked the guidance under the regulation, and it doesn't come into account. So the motion was essentially lost. So you still have the matter before council to determine, which is a very tricky situation.
Just a moment, councillors. Councillors, would councillors like to raise the motion to take a short break while we consider the position? Councillor Mitchell? Councillor Glover? All in favour? Thank you. So the meeting is adjourned.
But
Nothing got
It got
foreshadowed.
foreshadowed, but then when we went back, Councillor Shan didn't want to move it.
Well, I need to, oh yeah, and then we can vote to re-adjourn, okay. Thank you for your patience, everyone. We'll reopen the meeting. Would councillors like to vote to reopen? Councillor Glover, seconded by Councillor Shand. All in favour? Thank you. CEO O'Connor, would you like to provide a summary of where we are now for the benefit of our video audience?
Yes, thanks very much, President. So after taking some advice and looking at some of the WALGA commentary around the relevant parts of the regulations to do with revoking council's decisions, I believe that the absolute majority required under item 8.1.1, the advice is actually, as that was considered and required a casting vote, that the casting vote itself does not have any material impact on the voting. So therefore, technically it was the resolution failed or was not supported. Therefore, as a result of getting that information, the revocation hasn't occurred. Therefore, Council's original decision of decision 204/11/24 of 27th of November, which was that they refused the event or the application, that original decision stands. Again, I'll reiterate that in the event that the applicant isn't happy with that outcome, then they have the right to go back to the State Administrative Tribunal or to SAT to seek a mediation or a further step. Obviously, that then, if that motion has been defeated and hasn't been revoked, then item 8.1.2 cannot be proceeded, and that matter needs to be withdrawn because any consideration and decision would be seen ultra vires, i.e. outside the power of council.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor, and thank you everyone for your patience. This has been quite tricky. Moving on to 8.1.3, Schedule of Accounts Paid at the 31st of December 2024. Would councillors like to, considering we hadn't have an agenda briefing, would councillors like...
Probably not on this one. I wonder whether this is just a procedural one. It's more on the monthly financial reports if councillors want a briefing.
Okay. We'll do a briefing on the monthly reports. Okay, so would councillors like to move the executive recommendation that council receive the accounts for payment report for the period ended December 2024 as per attachment 8.1.31?
May I, before we do this, I wasn't aware of what that meant. Are we not able to ask a question or make a statement around this? Is that what you're saying?
We can ask questions. Would you like to move the motion first? I can take a question rather than debate, if you like. Moved by Councillor Glover, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Now, are there any questions? Oh, sorry, all those in... No, we're not voting yet, we're just asking questions. Hold. Sorry, any questions?
Yes,
Councillor Lindemann.
thank you. I just wanted to ask, the organics disposal on November 24th was $4,394.70. Given that organics are going to landfill, will this price be changing, or would we be expecting it to change?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann.
Is that...
Councillor, Director of Operations.
Thank you, Madam President. If I may, that current cost, as you're aware, is for organics to go to landfill. We are still not in a position to come back to council and advise on the alternative, and I understand that certainly at a CEO level there's been a lot of discussion and consideration for the alternatives. Right at this point in time, we don't have an alternative for you, so that is the cost for landfill.
Thank you.
Could I ask a follow-up question to that?
Councillor Lindemann.
Thank you. Through the President. Is that more or less than what it would normally be? Is it just the same price, even though there's probably less work involved? And is it then possibly able to be negotiated?
Thank you, Councillor Lindemann. Are we able to answer that question, Director of Operations?
Yeah, can I just double check that account? Is that a Bunbury Harvey Regional Council cost, or is that a Cleanaway cost that we're looking at?
It was a Bunbury Harvey Regional Council cost.
Okay, so, sorry, just point of clarification then. So that would have been for organics disposal in November, which was still relevant at the time. So then, to answer your substantive question, and if you could just repeat it for me again.
So that was a cost in November. Moving forward, that no longer goes to an organics composting service. So would we be expecting that to be reduced as there would be less work involved in that process? Now it goes directly to landfill.
Thank you, Councillor Lindeman.
If I may, Madam President, I would be pretty naive if I suggested it's going to be less. If anything, our waste costs are going to be more. And the alternatives involved a lot more transport at the moment, so that alone would suggest that if we are looking at an alternative organics disposal without any procurement or commercial negotiation, it's probably going to be more, or highly likely to be more.
Probably if I could ask through you, Shire President, just add to that, and as Mr Marshall has foreshadowed, obviously this has been a topic of great discussion at CEO level across the region, and whilst we sort of do like to look at the waste from a regional initiative, there are a number of councils looking at, with the decision from Bunbury Harvey Regional Waste Facility to not accept any more FOGO just before Christmas. A number of our neighbouring councils are looking at alternates, but it's fair to say, as Mr Marshall has foreshadowed, there's a policy decision and a cost decision that's going to be coming before council as part of your budget considerations. And I guess, certainly our position has been we don't have the volumes at this stage for us to be leading the charge, so we're looking at the alternates that other larger councils around us are pursuing. But it's not looking like it's going to be a cost decrease. It's going to be a cost increase if you want to maintain the current service.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor. Councillor Glover.
I'm just looking at item EFT 29887, Geograph Ford, and noting that in this period we spent $92,415.08 on vehicles. And my question is possibly not, it's a very loose question, but about value for money for those vehicles, because I'm understanding that we would have traded vehicles and this would be the gap between a trade and the purchase of a new vehicle. And leads me to my next point around value for money around vehicles. And if I can be brave enough to ask that there is a report about vehicles that we are purchasing and how many we have, are we getting the best value for money, are we getting economical vehicles, etc.
Thank you, Councillor Glover.
So thanks very much.
CEO O'Connor.
Yep, so through you, Shire President. Thanks very much, Councillor Glover. It is, your question is very timely given the fact that we're coming up to budget discussions. You'll recall as part of your annual budget process you adopt a fleet budget. That there was 3 vehicles that were up of the light fleet that were up for renewal. In undertaking the procurement process, we looked at obviously the whole of life costs for each of our the replacement vehicles, given that the 3 were overdue for replacement. A like-for-like replacement, certainly for the CEO's vehicle, would have blown the budget. So in order to make sure we got what I call best value when it comes to our fleet management, we chose the Ford Everest, which provides value for money, but also looks at, I guess, good or sound asset management principles, including not only the cost to procure, but the cost to maintain, and then the resale cost as well, or the trading cost at the end of the life cycle. I don't know if Mr Marshall wishes to make any further comments.
Yes, I would, CEO, Madam President, through the chair. And I think I'd just like to highlight, we could have been about $15,000 over budget if the CEO had chosen to maintain a Prado. So I'd like to recognise the CEO for helping us actually keep that changeover actually below budget. So overall, when you look at the trade-in values and the cash component, we're actually under budget by about $800 round figures, which is pretty pleasing result given the cost increases we've had. We've also gone for a different type of vehicle, a much more efficient sort of vehicle, which is quite incredible. The fuel efficiencies of the Everest is actually very good. I'm actually getting in the 7s, so 7 litres per 100 kilometres, and low 8s, so it's quite impressive. So we did take all of that into account, and I think just again to, you know, the CEO is working with the executive team on fleet, value for money. We're actually consulting lots of people about different options, changeover rates, and we are in the background preparing some information to bring to council to share with you on that as well.
That's wonderful, thank you. Councillor Shand?
I just want to springboard off that and ask...
We're still on questions, by the way, so...
Yes, yeah, I just want to springboard off that and ask about the truck purchase. And I notice in your asset disposals there was an Isuzu truck. Is this Isuzu replacing that, or is this in addition to? And was that in the budget?
Director of Operations?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the one that's carried over. Does that, yeah, Manager for Finance Corporates, acknowledging that. So that was a bring over from last year. So it is a replacement, or carryover, I should say, and it was due to the delivery period. So the time frame lapsed into this financial year. So.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick?
Thank you. Just one quick question. The LRCI audits, so Local Roads Community Infrastructure, I'm assuming that's what that refers to. Is that a mandatory audit? It is?
Yeah, I'll just defer to Manager of Financial Services. My understanding is it's a requirement of the funding agreement that there is an audit for LRCI. Yep. Yes, it is. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Thank you, CEO O'Connor. Are there any further questions before we go into debate? Okay. Councillor Glover, would you like to speak to your motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Mitchell? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put that to vote. All in favour? Thank you. Moving on to 8.1.4, Statement of Financial Activity Report as at the 30th of November 2024 and 31st of December 2024. Because we haven't had an agenda briefing, we'll ask Manager Financial Services and Manager Financial Services to give us a little overview of the report. And are you going straight to December?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick one on December. 6 months of the year, things are tracking pretty well. Capital expenditure is nearly 50% done on construction and buildings as well. Salaries are tracking pretty well. Just trying to think what else we need to point out.
What page are you on, please, Stephanie?
Oh, I was just looking at
The attachments.
Oh, sorry.
Are you looking at
December's report.
December's report?
Yeah, things are just tracking well.
No
I don't know what else I can say.
Doing a good job.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. So no major variances, Stephanie, that you're aware of, or?
Well, I've got explanations against major ones. Probably one of the ones might be, I'm just trying to think through again. The interest revenue is down slightly, but I still think that we'll pick that up just with the timing of the term deposits that have gone on. A lot of them on 90 days, so the interest is going to hit, and the budget spreads aren't quite right at this stage. And other major variances is, no, most of them are sitting pretty much in track. Employee costs are up, but that's due to timing as well of the budget spreads. And also we've had some staff resignation, so there's been quite a few large payouts, but that will come back at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, would someone like to move item, if I can get back to my original document, item 8.1.4, Statement of Financial Activity Report. Councillor Patrick. Seconder. Councillor Lindeman. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Lindeman? No. We'll put that to, or would anyone else like to speak to the motion? We'll put that to vote. All in favour? Well done. Thank you, councillors. Moving on to 8.1.5, the approval of the VC Mitchell Park licences, management model and business case, aka business plan, submissions. Would councillors like to move the recommendation? Councillor Patrick? Second by Councillor Shand.
Would you like us to talk to it at all? Or summary, or was it pretty straightforward?
Without the agenda briefing, would councillors like a little brief on the topic?
Yeah, look, if you can provide a quick brief and then...
We'll just give a quick brief. Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
We'll just do briefing for now. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Councillor
look, thanks very much.
Sutton.
Through you, Sharp, I'll kick off and then I'll hand over to Mrs. Clifford. So this is a really important juncture of time when it comes to the whole VC Mitchell Park development. Obviously, there's the large body of work that was overseen by Mr. Marshall and his team in regards to the development of the facility and the renewal. However, tonight, obviously, we're seeking Council's formal consideration of the business case, which is required for Council to do, albeit somewhat out of the usual sort of sequence. You'll also recall, councillors, that before Christmas, we took the opportunity to have a bit of an open facility where we received feedback around, I guess, broadening the community use of the facility and passing that information on to the proposed licensees to make sure that it is really truly a community asset. So before you tonight, seeking a number of, there's a number of officer recommendations around noting those submissions on the business case or the business plan, and then obviously the administration's or staff comments, having a look at noting the submissions received around the draft licences that are provided, and then making some authorisation to myself as the CEO to make some minor amendments to the licences. Also, importantly, councillors, it's around adopting the fees and charges associated to it, and then also requesting the CEO to provide the local public notice that's required. So, Mrs. Clifford, did you want to make some comments over and above my introduction?
Yes, thanks. I'll just add a few more bits and pieces in there for councillors before they make their decision. So the management agreement, as it stands, allows for the clubs to individually waiver their 5-year moratorium on their fees. So the officer's recommendation is based on this, so that it aligns with the property management framework and the good governance and the equity with the rest of the tenants moving forward under the property management framework. So the timing between getting the submissions in and then getting the management order written up over the Christmas period and Christmas break with lawyers has allowed for us to have a bit of flexibility in there, and that's why the recommendation allows for the CEO to be able to make some minor amendments as long as it's in line with as long as there's no major changes and that doesn't materially change or alter the contents of the licence. So therefore, each group or each club with the proposed licences will be able to each either waiver their 5-year moratorium and then be able to go under the PMF with the licence fee and the subsidy that is allowed under the community benefit subsidy. However, if they decide not to waiver that, then they'll just keep going on their fees that they've allowed, and there will be a management fee applied to that as per the draft licence. Also, just in regards to the fees and charges, due to the timing, there has been little consultation with the groups, and being that we've just got a short period between now setting these fees and then the new budget coming up, we will have some consultation with the groups or the licence holders during that period of setting the budget for the fees and charges. The fees that we have proposed do include GST. I just note that wasn't written in the report anywhere. So thank you.
Thank you. Director of Finance and Corporate. Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Shand?
Yep. One of the things that came up in multiple conversations was a period of time of 12 months to allow for review. I can't see that in the documentation. Has that been provided for? Yeah?
Thank you, Councillor Shand. Director of Finance and Corporate, if you have an answer.
Through the chair, yes. In the management agreement, it allows for after the second period, the 2-year period, for a review to be done, and it sets out some requirements in that regards to meeting KPIs, and the CEO setting up an evaluation in regards to that.
I'm sorry, was that a yes to 12 months?
It was 2 years. 2 years to allow time.
And where in, can I just ask a following question from that? Where in the recommendation would I find that covered?
So it's in when you So, through you, Chair, so Councillor, if you turn your mind to attachment 8.1.53, which is the management agreement, I think it expressly deals with the review processes. And my understanding, Shire President, is the reason that it is 2 years and not 12 months, and apologies if I've given you advice that it was 12 months, is that to allow for, I guess, the licence to remain on foot and for enough data and information to be gathered. So when the review does actually get undertaken, it's data-driven and informed.
So I'll find that in the attachments. Where was that? Sorry? Their agreement to review. CEO, that's a very comprehensive review. Yeah, okay. I understand. Any further questions? Councillor Glover?
Ms Clifford, I'm sorry if I was trying really hard to follow what you were talking about with in regard to the financial implications. I'm just reading the report, and I'm wondering if you can explain to me what it actually equates to, because as I'm reading it, what this says is that there's a total of $350.07 for the football club to be paying, and $416.75. It's on page 29 of 34. Is that an annual cost, or is that just for the remainder of this financial year?
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Director of Finance and Corporate.
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you for the question, Councillor Glover. Yeah, it is complicated to understand. So this is the fees that would be based on this financial year, because and as the recommendation states that I'm recommending that the clubs would choose to waiver the fee, only because that would give them the discounted rate as per the community and bring them in line with the property management framework, which is our aim for good governance and equity with all the groups. So if that does happen, the groups will pay the rent for the licence of the property, will be the minimum GRV rate, which is for all properties, and then based on the community benefit subsidy that's included in the property management framework based on the feedback that are given back from the groups. Each of them, it indicates the amount of the fee, of the subsidy that they are able to get. And then based on all the negotiations with the groups, we've said that the estimated annual facility costs, as outlined below, and then the management agreement costs of what they would have had to pay are offset by those fees. So looking at that, yes, for that first year for the football club, it would be $350.07 if they do decide that they want to waiver their 5-year moratorium. Otherwise, we would have to go back to the fees and the moratorium of what was in place prior to that decision that council made back in July 2019, I think it was. And same for the tennis club as well. So it's up to each of the groups whether they want to decide to waiver that fee, hop onto the property management framework and then get that subsidy. And for them, it would probably get them better off, and that amount can change from year to year based on the information that they provide to us in their annual health check, which looks at how they, their financials, how they're governing their groups, if they're aligning with legislation, they're providing us with information like all of the checks that you would normally look for in regards to people and tenants who are in your building.
Thank you.
Am I able just to clarify that I've understood that answer? So what I'm understanding as well, that the remaining annual cost estimated payable for the Shire is $26,662. And so because we're looking at that, that's remainder for this financial year?
Yes, my understanding that's for the first, for a first full complete financial year.
So that's
because we wouldn't have had all of those costs yet for the 24-25 financial year. So that would probably be the cost for 25-26. I'd have to check in with Roscoe about that in regarats to those numbers.
So that's like an annual 12-month cost?
Which we'd have outlined in the...
So it's the pro rata.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Is it pro rata or annual? Sorry.
Sorry if I may. That amount is for the full term. We would have, because we don't know the effective contract date, it would be pro rata that amount.
So that's the full amount.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that good, Councillor Glover?
It's fine.
Okay. Councillor Shand?
Not being familiar with waivers, can you explain what a waiver is in local government terms and how that represents to the ratepayers?
Thank you. Sorry, Director Corporate and Finance.
So waivers are very different. So in regards to the terms that we're talking about here and waivering so in December, I can't remember, sorry, what month it was, council decided when it first went to council to make a decision to go forward with BC Mitchell, there was a decision made by council to say that we wouldn't increase the fees from practical completion for up to 5 years for the groups that are affected, and so that their fees would not increase from that for a 5-year period. So if the group now chooses to waive that or say that's fine, we're happy to set that aside now and to jump onto the property management framework, abide by the rent that's as per the framework and the licence and the policy, then they will get that. And then within the framework, it actually allows for groups to have a community benefit subsidy based on the things that they're doing within the community to sort of meet our outcomes from the council plan and the good governance and their financial and information. So yeah, it's not like waiving a fee or giving them a discount. It's just that they're going to set aside to say that they don't want to have that 5-year moratorium on their fees anymore. because it actually works out in their favour.
So that's allowing, sorry, can I jump in on your question, Councillor Shand?
Yes, you may.
That is, in my understanding, allowing the groups to hop into the changes that have occurred since that 2019 motion and giving them the option to try to do both.
Yes, that's
to
correct.
do either, sorry.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. Question from Councillor Glover.
Thank you. Different subject. I just note that back in 2023, the Council Resolution 105, it was about endorsing the Donnybrook Football Club contribution to the VC Mitchell Park as followed. 5.1 financial contribution of 225,000, which was 160,000 from Donnybrook Football Club by way of self-supporting loan, and 5.12 was 65,000 from DFC, from the Football Commission, which I think that was about lights or something like that. So just wondering where in all of this is this mentioned in the licence agreement?
Thank you, Councillor Glover.
Yes.
Would you like to answer, CEO?
So I believe that would be one of the minor additional administrative changes that we'd make to the draft licence. We would be explicit about that. Sorry, the management agreement. We would be explicit about that amount being put in the management agreement.
Councillor Glover?
So I'm noting that that's currently not in there, and when would that be put in there?
Prior to execution.
Thank you, Councillor Shand.
Will we receive draft copies prior to execution, or is it just going straight through without us viewing it?
With
It's up to it's up to council what you would prefer. If you obviously the document that's an attachment before you today is really just the draft document. I believe it's just the outline document that's been provided late last week by the lawyers, and I guess it gives the intent. However, if council wanted to see the finalised document prior to execution, then that's a decision for council to make.
Thank you, CEO O'Connor. Councillor
Sorry,
Shand?
one more question. In relation to one of the points that's in the documents about landscaping, so it's kind of, can we get more of an interpretation on that? Because it looks like it's just landscaping. So how much, how often do they work? I mean, is that in the agreement? Because it just seems like it could just keep going on and on. Is that for the entirety? Yeah.
Director of Operations, would you like to respond?
Yeah, if I may, Madam President, the intent was outlined in the report that's actually Councillor Glover has referred to, that the original contribution from memory was about, agreed at about 185,000. So it was understood that the Donnybrook Football Club would do $25,000 working kind value. So again, I think we could add that as a clarification note. If you could, this is on notice, so we can take that and we can put that in as a clarification.
Yeah,
note.
thanks, Roscoe, because I think, how do we actually, if you put work out to tender, which is what we do, how do we work out what that hourly rate is? Is it an hourly rate? Etc. Because if we're doing this all in the open, then we should have those parameters.
Thank you. Just before we move on,
Yeah.
can we just amend that word?
Yeah, so I just wonder, based on your suggestion, obviously the mover and the second would need to agree, but you could provide a little bit more information or a little bit of clarity under recommendation 5 to reflect that request. Yeah.
And do we just, we can just get that agreed by moving and seconded?
Yeah, that can be agreed. That there's that minor change.
Councillor Patrick and Councillor Shand?
Are you
Do
happy
you agree
with
to that small wording change? Okay, thank you. Question from Councillor
Oh,
Glover.
yeah, would that also, is that I was going to ask if it was worthwhile making an amendment in regard to the $160,000 as well. Will that also fall under 5A
Yeah,
and
we can
B?
put- we can put
All
that
of
in.
that, whatever that resolution was from back then.
Yep.
If that falls under there, then I would
We'll
be
provide
very
that
happy
clarity,
with that.
Councillor Glover. Yep.
Is that an amendment to this?
No, it's agreed to by the
Both of
by
them?
the mover and the seconder, and it's only just providing additional clarity. It's not changing the original intent of the motion. So, with the agreement of the mover and the seconder, those couple of minor changes provide clarity. Yep.
Let me know when you're ready. We'll just wait for those adjustments. It's warm, isn't it?
It's horrible. I moved from North Queensland to get away from it. Yeah.
We put it in there about the 65,000 from the football cushion. 25.
The commission money.
That's already in?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, and then how much was the in-kind?
25.
Was it 20?
20. Madam President, if I may just expand on that, like what we're doing to demonstrate to council the value of the work in kind is basically the club sends me an email, says, look, we would like to do this work in accordance with our work in kind. I check that, see that it's in line with what we are proposing to do as far as budget goes. I then issue approval for that. I will then get an estimate from the football club, which I'll review, and then I'll bring that information back to council at some point in time to demonstrate that there's been at least the amount agreed. I suspect it'd probably be more.
That's a little, that's just like a contractor.
Yeah, and it's also just to demonstrate, you know, that work is being done and what the value of that work is.
We've got that up, Brad?
Councillors, sorry.
Sorry, that amendment's
Are you
fine.
comfortable with that wording, councillors and show president? Does that provide the clarity you're looking for, councillors?
Point B probably doesn't cover what Councillor Shan, but it doesn't actually talk about how we're going to value that. I think what Roscoe's explained it, but it doesn't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to word it better. But commitment from the DFC to providing.
Yeah, I agree with Grant. I just think it needs to be shown publicly how that's going to work.
If that's changed there, appropriate?
Yeah.
But not limited to project, not site landscape. So would come after minor works with a report back to council. Oh no, a commitment from DFC to provide in-kind support.
of 20,000 minor works including and a report to be brought back to a future council meeting outlining the proposed methodology to
Yeah.
quantify
The proposed works.
to
Yeah.
quantify the $20,000 work in kind work. Yeah. The proposed methodology to quantify the in-kind support.
We're all watching you, Sam.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
Well done.
May I?
Is everyone happy with that wording first?
No, I
All
wanted
right.
to just ask.
Councillor Glover, what would you like?
I just wanted a point of clarity around timeframes with that as well. So, you know, when will council or Shire expect the funds to be in the bank or the works completed? Is there any timeframes around that? Because sometimes it's like, well, you didn't say when. We might,
Timeframes to complete the in-kind works.
and also the 160,000 as well. I mean, you want something reasonable because maybe they need to apply for a loan. I don't know, but yeah, a time frame would be really good to clarify it.
Director of Operations?
Madam President, if I may just make a suggestion. So with regard to 5A, I think commercially it's probably reasonable to expect a contribution within 28 days of execution of the agreement. So there's a time frame there. And then as far as B goes, I would say a reasonable time frame would be 12 months, if that's okay. And from execution of the agreement.
Deadly. Yes.
Sorry, just something else about that. Would we put in line with the recommendation, the council recommendation 105/23 as well, so it sort of ties it all in together with that as well, and put that in?
So you're suggesting, Councillor Glover, that you approve the management agreement to be executed by the Chief Executive Officer, inclusive of the following additions, that in line with blah blah blah. So you do it in line with Council resolution of 101.
Yeah, so it's council resolution 105/23.
It's 5A and B. Yeah. Is that council resolution? Is 5A and B?
Oh yeah, both. Yes.
Comfortable with that? Yeah, we can tidy it up, but as long as it.
Right. Are councillors happy with that with that change? And mover and seconder are comfortable with that change? Okay. Right. Any further questions before we move to debate? Okay. Councillor Patrick, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. I guess ultimately, I want to thank those that provided feedback, particularly from the community. I have read through, the submissions and things, and I do understand community sentiment. For some people will be, yes, okay, the footy club's benefiting, and why isn't the Shire managing it directly, and so on. But I believe that the most financially viable option that we could come up with is the option that's been put on the table. The proposals and the suggestions around hiring community development officers and other managers to manage the facility and things, they're great ideas, and if we were in a much better financial space and we had the forward planning opportunity to do that, yep, I agree. However, that in turn would obviously add significant additional costs to the ratepayer without us knowing what the potential income is going to be. So there is significant risk there around additional cost to the ratepayers. I think this proposed model that Roscoe and the team have put a lot of work into is the most viable and best option, at least for the next 2 years, which will then give us that data to review the options available to us to see, if there's a better way forward. But all in all, I would encourage that, councillors support this as it is. We've put a lot of time and effort into it. And I reiterate, I do understand the community sentiment may be that it seems that it's all one-sided, but I believe that every viable option has been reviewed and reviewed and reviewed, and this is the best option that we've got to make it viable for the community and the ratepayer. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Shand, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Patrick. And in particular that I read through all of the comments and I agree wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, we were not in the position. Our hands had been tied when we first came in to some of the decisions that have been made. So I believe this is the best case scenario of what we can do, and the 2-year clause will help us to understand what we're actually facing. Well done to the staff and Roscoe with the extra hours and time that he put in to actually trying to work out the nuts and bolts of these agreements, and to Lauren for her work. I just really believe that we need to look forward and try to find the best way that we can to utilise this facility.
Thank you, Councillor Shand. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? Councillor Glover?
Yeah, totally agree with everyone, read through the comments as well, and understand at this point it's not viable for Shire to run the building, and this was the best way, as Councillor Patrick said. I've sat through many when we were first speaking about this project, and there was no easy way forward. I just want to, thank the staff for finding some ways. Hopefully it's the best way. It's the best for what we could do. And we will be reviewing it in 2 years' time, and then maybe things will be different from there too. So it's always open for further discussion going forward, and we can always revisit in 2 years.
Thank you, Councillor Glover. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion for or against? I'd just like to say that I also agree that this is the best model out of the many that were considered. From Shire Run, detailed review of a Shire Run model, detailed review of varying blended models. This selected model, and I was the one that fell off my chair when we didn't have the Shire Run model, but this blended model that is going forward now is a model that fits for purpose for Donnybrook. We have got brilliant volunteers in Donnybrook, Balingup Shire, and we will thrive on volunteers, and this model has the best use of the combined Shire resources and volunteers available to bring out the best outcome for our Shire. And it's up to us now to take it forward in the best way we possibly can. So all credit to everyone that worked on these models, including councillors, many workshops, and well done to Director of Operations, who's seen it right through. Taken a lot of criticism. So I think this is quite momentous and it's wonderful. Okay. Any further comment from Executive or anybody else? Councillor Glover?
Yeah, I mean, Shire staff have done very well, but also like to thank all the people on the stakeholder groups as well, because you've sat through tireless amounts of time helping us get to this point as well. So those members of the community groups as well, or the sporting groups too, have really done a great job. Thank you.
Very good pick-up, Councillor Glover. Yeah, very good. We're now at the point where we can put this to... Oh, right of reply for Councillor Patrick. 10 out of 10, I remembered. Okay, so we'll put this to vote. All those in favour? Carried. Right. Item 9, elected member motions. We have none. There's no new business. We're not closing the meeting to the public, which takes us on to item 12, closure. We will close the meeting at 7:23 p.m. A difficult meeting, councillors. Thank you very much for your